Live for Monday morning. It's the B&H event space with me, Scott, and JC from Westcott. JC, what's happening, man? How are you?
Super stoked to be here, like always. It's always a good time to get to hang out with you guys and, obviously talk Westcott, but just in general, it's always good. I think that people are really missing out that they don't get to see the 10, 15 minutes before we do this.
We always talk about that. Derek and I always threaten that we're actually going to publish that at some point. And
Just
if,
have it going, right?
yeah, if it ever gets out, something tells me that you won't see me anymore. So so we might just keep it under wraps.
I think you're great. Unedited Scott is the best Scott. But anyway,
It's questionable. It's definitely questionable. I think I've maybe learned a thing or two from doing some of these live events and
yes.
being live for the people. So for those of you who don't know, JC is here. He is repping Westcott. So thanks to them for sponsoring this event. He's gonna be talking about big results with small strobes. So we've got a little bit of conversation going on. He'll be going over some of the product line from Westcott. So if you have any questions, anything like that, that you want to get over to him and have him answer, he's the guy to do it. So make sure you're joining here on Zoom. You can use the Q&A tab. If you're joining us on Facebook or Vimeo, you can use the comment section. But JC, I don't want to take any more of your time because I know you got a great presentation lined up, and take it away. I'll see you in a little while.
Super appreciate it, brother. So, like Scott mentioned, I am here with Westcott. Westcott's a company that's been in business since 1899, based in Ohio. And one of the things that really can't be overestimated when you're talking about Westcott is how great our US-based customer service is. So I want you guys, when you're going out to buy lights, to think about that, because it's definitely the thing that we don't think about until we need the help. So let's start with the name of this class, which is getting big results from small strobes. And it's going to be featuring the Westcott FJ200 and FJ80. And a lot of you may have seen, I hope, when I do a class called From Fear to Flash, which talks about my steps to get better results from strobes in general. And all the stuff that we talk about in there is still applicable when we're talking about the smaller strobes. And so let's move on. Let's get going. This is me. I invite you guys to get in touch with me if you have any questions after this. I invite you to check out my Instagram or to my website. Those are all things. And this is a picture that my, at the time, 6-year-old daughter took using the tips from Fear to Flash. So I'm a shooter. I love photography. There's nothing, honestly, like people when they say, like, what's your hobbies when you're not working? And I'm like, photography. Maybe that makes me sound boring, but wherever I'm going, whether it's travel, night photography, sports photography, having that camera in my hand is like my way of seeing the world and kind of trying to make it fit what I want it to fit. I want it to look, the way that I see in my head sometimes. And there's a lot of things where I have no control over that, where I'm kind of limited to what the available light gives me. But when people say, oh, I'm an available light shooter, I often say, well, a strobe or a flash was available to you. So to me, having that control is what makes it easy to evolve as a photographer, to become somebody who's not just somebody who takes pictures, to somebody who makes photos. So I talk about the FJ400 quite a bit, which is the most powerful and strongest strobe in the lineup currently. But today we're not going to talk about that. We're going to skip the FJ400 and we're going to instead talk about the FJ80, which is our speed light, and the FJ200. And so when we talk about the FJ80, what makes it different? It's the first round head touchscreen speed light on the market. Super easy to use for anybody who is picking it up. No complex holding down of 2 or 3 buttons at the same time. No weird menus that are hard to get to. Really easy to use for just about anybody. And that really, if you've tried to pick up a lot of older speed lights, especially if you're a beginner, there's hold down 2 buttons to get the function, hold down this one to get into the menu. We've eliminated that, and it's a really, really easy to use intuitive design. It has 3 use modes. It can be a host, where it's a transceiver, so it can control other lights in the FJ wireless system and some other stuff that we're going to hit in a second. It can be a client, where it's off camera for use as a remote, and this is the way that I like to use it the most. I believe in getting it off camera. Or we can put it into the shoe and use it like a speed light, like like a regular traditional speed light. But what the difference is that this one is the FJ80 and it's 80 watt seconds of power, which is a lot more power than your normal traditional speed light. It's the first multi-brand camera compatible radio transceiver in a flash. Pretty much whichever camera brand you shoot with, you can use the FJ80 in your shoe. With Sony, you can see that you need the little adapter there. And you can put that in. You can talk to our other flashes, our other strobes. You can talk to other FJ80s. You can even talk to Canon RT flashes, which is a pretty cool thing for the Canon shooters out there. All you need to do is change. You can see if you can zoom in and see, I'm not sure if you can, but it's Sony, Lumix, Fuji, Olympus, Canon, Nikon, and you're just going to choose which camera brand it's going to go onto, and you're going to be ready to go. Like I mentioned, it also works with the Canon RT system. There's a lot of Canon shooters out there, and it's a pretty cool feature that you can use this to talk to your other RT flashes, or it can be off camera and used with your RT transmitters. Like I mentioned before, it has an 80 watt second power, it has 9 stops of range, 400 full power pops per charge, a lithium polymer battery, which keeps the weight down, very fast flash duration. That's what you would expect. Flash duration is actually why speed lights are called speed lights, because they have a lot of freezing power. A recycle time of 1.2 at full power. That's really fast. Compare that to some of the first party flashes from some of the big camera manufacturers, and it's 2 to 3 times as fast as some of them. Manual and TTL, obviously. You've got all the different sync functions you would expect. High speed sync, normal, rear curtain. It has a built-in modeling lamp. I know a lot of mirrorless cameras today cannot focus. They don't take advantage of focus assist the way that old SLRs did. Well, with this, if you really are in a situation where you need just a little bit of light in order to be able to see where you are, well, you can turn it on. It's a 3 watt bulb, and it really makes it easy to focus in dark situations. This is what comes with it. All the standard stuff you'd expect. Battery with the charger. There are some accessories already available for it. The front of it is magnetic, so these things just snap right on, and you're able to go. If you want to take this and use it with our soft boxes, our rapid boxes, we do have a Westcott switch insert, which is good for the FJ80 as well as some of the other round head flashes that are out there. You can get the grid and gel pack, which make for a lot of creative choices, which are really fun to play with. Just again, 1.2 seconds at full power, just super fast. 400 full powers. That round head design with the magnetic mount is great for putting on accessories, but it's also the round head, until you actually see it, you will definitely notice a difference in image quality compared to the older rectangular ones. Like all of our lights, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is stability across the entire 9 stops of powers in our Kelvin, which is our color temperature, as well as a lot of very great consistency between the FJ80, the FJ200, the FJ400. That's something we do. It's got that 2.8-inch color touchscreen on the back, wireless communication up to 328 feet, the built-in wireless transceiver, and the 3 watt modeling lamp. That's really the highlights of the FJ80. Now, I came from a background of doing like almost all of my work with speedlights, so I have a soft spot for speedlights. But when you can give me 2 to 3 times as much power in a package that's about the same size and about the same price, I got to say that there's a lot to love about the FJ200. Fastest 200 watt second battery powered strobe on the market. It's designed for photographers that need that big performance in a small form factor. I like to say, it's kind of like the pit bull of the lighting world for me. I love it. It stays with me. It's in my bag. It's about the size of a 70-200 f4 for people who are trying to wrap their head around what this really looks like. I know with nothing to scale it to, it's hard to tell sometimes. The highlights of this, 1.3 at full power, which for a 200 watt light, it's the fastest on the market. 450 full power flashes per charge. Again, a round head design with an extended tube gives superior light output. We didn't bother with a Fresnel. We didn't do any of those tricks to make the light seem more powerful. Ours is 200 watts, bare light, fills modifiers, goes into the included reflector, comes with grids. This is going to give you great image quality right out of the box. I already talked about color stability with the FJ80. Well, you get that same color stability when you're using the FJ200. The same 9 stops of power increments from a 1 to 9, 9 being the most powerful. Continuous capture up to 20 frames per second. This is, I use it for some of my concert work these days, and I'm using it with a Sony A1, and I'm getting 20 frames per second if I turn the power down. I've seen some people go, well, it only shoots 1 per second at full power. I'm like, yes, it's 1.3 seconds per recycle time at full power. But when we turn that power down, we can get up to 20 frames per second. It is an AC-DC unit, just like its big brother, the FJ400. We can put in an adapter, get AC power. It's compatible with umbrellas, FJ200 rapid box insert, quick mount S bracket. All those are different ways that you can take this small little light and get really big results out of it, because light quality is what's important. This one has a 5-watt modeling lamp, which again makes it very easy to see where what your light's going to do, especially in a darker environment. It also is great for helping focus if you're shooting a dance floor and event photography. This is something that I'll do even holding this off camera. Better kind of look at it from the side and from the front. Not touchscreen. It's a smaller package. Wanted to really make it stay small, but really easy to use again. Very intuitive designs. This is what you get when you buy it. You get the case, you get the reflector, you get the grids, you get the gels, you get the flash tube cover, you get everything that you would need, including the USB-A to USB-C cables. One of the things with our system, because it's universal, is that you should maintain your firmware updates, because we're always coming out with new functionality or new compatibility with different brands. It's a really nice, easy to store package. Again, I mentioned it comes with the grid. You don't have to go out and buy that. The grid, that front piece there, opens up and is able to hold the gels. These are things that a lot of companies are going to make you pay for after. We're saying, you know what, let's get the people out there and have them be creative right away. Battery charger, ready to go. The FJ200 comes in a few different kits to make it, it's an easy to get into system, whether you have a lot of experience with strobes or you're just starting out. The backpack's super nice, comes with the remote, comes with all the things that came with it, comes with a snoot also, and with an Octa S softbox, which is really sweet. It's a great package. We also have it in a 2-light kit and in a 3-light kit. At the heart of our whole system, I really can't get into anything about our lights without talking a little bit about the FJX2M, which is our trigger. Unlike a lot of other brands where you're going to need a different trigger for every different camera that you have, different brand, with us, whether you're using Canon, Nikon, Sony, Lumix, Olympus, Fujifilm, and quite honestly some other ones also that we don't list because they're not going to get full functionality, but they will go on and off. They will shoot, with no problem. It's going to give you TTL, high-speed sync, all the things that you would expect in a small universal package. That's what it looks like. So there's some of the information, the details for you. And again, it talks to Canon RT, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. I'd be really doing you guys a disservice if I don't talk about the fact that aside from these great lights that we're making now, we're also making one of the best lineups modifiers that are out there. And our modifiers are built to last, come with that Westcott difference, the support, and they also come with no color cast, diffusion. It's a hard thing to talk about, but for people that shoot a lot, you'll notice that some of the less expensive modifiers that are out there are going to throw a color cast. So if you have great lights that are really consistent and don't have a color cast, but then you put cheap modifiers on them, sometimes you're going to notice that cast, and it can be frustrating to deal with in post. Whether it's our full-size rapid boxes or it's our Apollo lineup of hybrid modifiers, is what we call them, they're all in an umbrella frame. They set up in seconds. Super easy. That mini boom arm, I get people every time they see it in a behind-the-scenes picture of mine, they're like, oh, what is that? I need one of those. Well, I figured I'd add it there for you to take a look at. The mini boom arm has been indispensable in me getting more creative with my work, especially in tighter spaces. And of course, we've been making umbrellas since 1899. If you need an umbrella to shoot photography with, we make it. I don't know why I had that little weird thing there. All right, so I talked a little fast during that. I went through that because I wanted to get to the part where we can actually talk about why we're going to do this. So why should we add lights? You've seen this before if you've seen From Fear to Flash, because it always starts out this way. Because what's the point in learning about this whole system if you can't tell yourself why you need it? At the end of the day, there's one reason and one reason only to have lights. Well, it's creativity. So many people are dealing with something that I call lighting anxiety, that they choose to make choices based on the available light. I said this at the beginning. To me, a strobe is available, a COB is available, a constant light source is available. If you aren't getting great light in your pictures with what's there, then add some light. Don't be scared of it, because the process is so much the same as what you do as a photographer already. Don't settle. You're a photographer. You're going out there and you're going to make photos. So creativity. There's really not another reason to add light. If you can't get the vision that you want with the ambient light, then add it. Bring the light into the scene. Make the picture more what you have envisioned in your head. You're an artist. We're not just people who document what is. We have the minute that you pick up a lens, the minute you choose to zoom, the minute you choose to shoot wide or tight, or you choose to underexpose or expose correctly or change the white balance, you're making decisions. You are bringing art to this. So why stop when it comes time to capture the light that's there? Add light if you don't like the light that's there already. All right. So I've talked that before, and I feel comfortable saying that because it's really the thing that's going to separate you from a lot of other people that are in the same boat that you are. Whether you're just shooting for your family or your pets or you're shooting professionally, the way to make yourself stand out today in a world where there's more photos taken than ever before is by using light. So why small lights? What's the advantage of these small strobes, of speed lights, of 200-watt strobes that we make? Well, size, is a big part of it. Ease of use. It's the same with cameras, right? We say, what's the best camera? It's the one you have with you. So while I love my FJ400, and there's a lot of times that I take it out because I need it for a specific reason, if you give me the choice between having my FJ400 or having nothing, I am always going to take out my FJ80. I'm always going to take out my FJ200. I'm going to put those in my bag with my camera gear and have it just in case, because it's going to let me create something that I might not be able to do if I didn't have it with it. Size. The ability to take a whole studio setup essentially and fit it in one backpack is why small lights really are great. And we're living in a golden time where ISO on the cameras means that less than ever, the amount of light isn't the big deal. It's the quality of light, where it's coming from, how soft it is, how hard it is, which direction. All of that is what's going to help us make creative choices. Something like this, where I look at this scene and I say, well, the ambient light is telling me that I got a good start here and it feels pretty good, but by adding in one speed light, I go from here, which is what the light gave me, to here, which is what I made. Now you'll notice a couple of things there that, this picture's a lot cleaner. Why? Because on the other one I had to jack up the ISO more than I wanted to. Two, the light is cleaner, the shadows are cleaner. This feels more like the scene that I was going for, which is this guy standing under a street light, but it's not what it looks like through the camera when we do this. It's really almost too diffuse, right? This is a better image. Our cameras, like we already said, are the best that they've ever been. There's no denying that. Crazy dynamic range, crazy ISO, but the cameras still can't make artistic decisions, really. And good, right? Because the day that they figure out how to make that, well, we're dealing with, robots that are going to take away all our jobs. I look at this scene and I say, hey, they're exposed correctly. Camera looks at it and says they're exposed correctly. It can't, though, take in the creative decision that I really like the way the sky looks better like this. So what did I do there? Aperture's the same, ISO is the same. I went from 2/50th of a second to 1600th of a second. So 2/50th to 500th to 1000th to almost 2000th. So let's call it 2 2/3 of a stop, 2.5 stops. That underexposed sky looks better to me, but the camera can't render both parts the same. So now I've got my subjects underexposed. So what am I going to do? I'm going to add a light. And if I take that and I add a light, in this case there's a couple of speed lights, I can do something like this. And having that with me makes it for a better picture. And quite honestly, this picture, even without the second light, if this is a situation where I'm really running and gunning, I'm out by myself, I run into this guy, which isn't what happened this day, but there's times where I'm just running around, I see somebody that's interesting, and I go, hey, can I take your portrait? I don't need the entire orb, although the orb is small. Like, I carry a 43-inch Westcott collapsible umbrella in my bag because it folds down to about 12 inches. And it's easy to set up and have a bigger light source. And I could have made this picture almost the same picture, just you wouldn't have that rim light behind the ears, on the hair a little bit. I could still make this picture with a nothing setup, the setup that doesn't affect me in any way to have with me. Again, camera tells us this is okay. That sky looks a lot better when it got underexposed. And I don't think underexposing your sky or underexposing your picture is always the answer. There's a lot of times where it is, but if you don't have lights with you, you're stuck with this picture or this picture, where we can make this picture just by adding in one light. And you'll see that Octa S is there. It's a small softbox that folds up really tiny, fits in the Westcott backpack easily, and gives you great image quality. All right. So we've decided why we need lights. We've decided why small lights are great. Let's talk about using these lights, the FJ80 and the FJ200, which I already did my pitch about, but let's talk about how they make life just better and why. Once you've accepted the idea that every lit image is two separate exposures, it's the exposure that you control with your aperture, your ISO, and your shutter speed, and it's the exposure that you control with your strobe or your lights. So in this case, ISO 100, f4, 12/50th of a second, rapid box, Octa M, medium size. At 12/50th, I've killed almost all the ambient light in the scene. I'm in Central Park by the fountain over there, underneath. 12/50th at ISO 100 at f4 gives me almost a black frame. So all the light that's in this is exclusively coming from my strobe. Now, I've decided, I want to see what's going on in the background there a little bit more. I want to see the stairs. I want to see all that. So I open up the shutter speed and I let a lot more light in. But the light that's on him is still coming from my strobe. Every lit image is two separate exposures. Here's another one of those examples. Great sunrise, great deep colors. If I underexpose them just a little bit, 5.6, 3/20th. Here we go, 5.6 at 200th. So I did change my shutter speed just a little bit because if anybody's ever been out for sunrise, and I'm sure some of you have, or because you guys are dedicated, the light was changing rapidly. And honestly, I wanted less of a silhouette in the trees than I was getting at 3/20th. So here we are. There's the FJ80, there's the FJ200. The FJ200 for me is a perfect mini strobe, whatever you want to call it, to use with the Octa M, the Octa S, the 1x3. It is fully capable of getting light through something like an Octa S or a 1x4, which are our bigger modifiers. But you're going to have them closer, right? Because you have less power than you do with a bigger strobe. So by putting it a little closer, though, you're maintaining its power. By changing your ISO, you're maintaining its power, or by knowing when to take it out. So this was a day where it was slightly overcast. I put the reflector, one of the deeper reflectors, not the deep focus reflector, but one of the other reflectors on there. That's bad except data on the right. I apologize in advance. You guys can see what's on it. And those two things together I'm going to use that reflector to the left to really give me a little bit of a hair light, a little bit of a side light, a little bit of fill all together, but just really on her face. The other light is going to be what fills most of her body. I didn't want that one on the left with the FJ80 to overpower. You can see I have the right exit data here, so I apologize for the last one. I have to go back and fix that. So that's the 70-degree wide reflector, the Octa M. We've got the FJ80 off to the left. It's a little less powerful, so I'm using it as a fill. I've got the 200 watt on the right. It's my main light going through that Octa M. Remember, when you want soft light, the bigger the light source in relationship to the size of the subject, the softer it'll be. So by taking the Octa M and putting it as close as I can get it, where it's still out of the frame, I'm able to get a really nice soft light where it goes across her face, goes around and wraps around a little bit, but it's not as soft as it would be, let's say, if I was using a 7-foot umbrella. Same setup, just different, place. Changed the, changed my lens here. So if you look at this one, it's a 35 millimeter at 1/8 at 2,000th of a second. Here I decided to let everything in a little bit more. Went down to 2/8. So that meant that I had to make a change to shutter speed, because if I had been at 2/8 at 2,000th of a second, then the background would be really dark, and I wanted to see the ship. There's that setup again. Like, it's really an easy go-to setup for me. I really love it. That I switch back and forth between the Octa S, the Octa M, the Octa S. Depends on how much of the person I'm going to shoot. If I'm going to shoot full body, or even half body, I tend to go towards the Octa M. But I really am in love with the Octa S. Not to get too much into that. We can make really nice soft light on location. We can go anywhere and turn any place that we find into a studio. You see a background in the street, bricks, whatever, a forest, whatever. Why limit yourself to studio photography? Make it so everywhere you go is a studio. That's one of the great benefits of these small lights. I'm not, scared to take out the FJ200s even when I'm dealing with a bigger subject. In this case, I'm not dealing with a lot of ambient light. Sun was going down, it's going really fast. So using the FJ200s as my main lights still makes sense, and able to get something like this. Remember that not everything has to be soft. So there's days where I'm going to shoot with the lights bare. These are both examples of that, where I'm getting really dynamic results. Underexposing, that picture on the left is a gasoline alley in Indianapolis. Underexposing the sky, which was flat. There's still not a lot of details in that. But at the same time that I'm underexposing that, I'm making the orange in his jumpsuit better. I'm making the reflection a lot better. And that really makes the difference. The picture on the right of my friend Vinny, it was a little windy. So I got rid of the softbox, just went to that, and I was willing to make the decision, I guess, that I'm going to put some hard shadows in it, because it fits him. It fits the vibe that he's got going on. He's a martial arts trainer. He's got his Muay Thai, shorts on. He's got that sharp haircut and that sharp jawline. I don't want necessarily to soften him up. So remember, we're not doing everything to make it soft. Sometimes hard light helps us tell the story we want to tell. Another with the, pick your battles. I get people who go, wow, you do so much good stuff with the FJ200, you do so much good stuff with the FJ80. Why do I need an FJ400? It's a great question. The answer is that when you want to fill a bigger modifier, or if you wanted to shoot during the middle of the day, you might need that extra power. A full other stop of power is going to come in handy. Or there's times when you want to shoot faster, recycle faster, where having the ability to take your 200 and turn it down in power is going to allow that to happen. Your 400 or your 200 over the 80. I hope I'm making sense. Having the more powerful strobe and being able to turn it down offers you a lot of flexibility. But in a case like this, where it was overcast, the sky wasn't great, it's later in the day, it's summertime, but it's getting later in the day. 6:30 p.m., 1/60th of a second, fill them both very nicely. Got two lights going on, 1x4, which I said is not my first choice necessarily with the FJ200, but I only wanted a kiss of light coming out of that, so it was good. But the Octa M really works well with it. Able to make this. But now I'm like, let me underexpose this. I'm not limited in how far away from the subject I can put the light, because there's only one downside to the small strobes, is they're not as powerful as the bigger strobes. But if I can put them closer, I maintain the power. And just with a change of shutter speed, able to get to here. You know, only thing between those pictures is changing, and I'm doing that with just 2 small strobes. Yeah, a couple of modifiers, but you know, this is something that if you're an advanced amateur, if you're somebody who just cares about light and cares about making good photos, this is all an easy setup to carry around. You're not rolling around a whole roller full of all this gear in order to make this happen. Back to that setup, which, you know, you can kind of tell is one of my favorites. This time I got the deep focus reflector on the FJ80. I'm just really trying to take that FJ80, amplify its power, and make it go to a small spot. The FJ200 is on the right, Octa M again, you know, ready to go and make pictures like this. And like, it really can't be argued that cell phone pictures make people sad, and well-lit pictures with real cameras make people happy. You know, this is the proof. We're on the internet. I'm showing you the proof, and you have to believe it. So just remember that. I think that it makes a big difference. That deep focus reflector and the FJ80 are used here by themselves. It's not that much later in the day than that other one. I've switched out to the 135mm, which really compresses the background, really gives us a lot of bokeh, which is really what I'm going for here. And I just wanted to look like there's a nice little pocket of light that just goes around there. That deep focus reflector, because it has those hard edges, really focuses the light and makes it sure that it all catches on my subject rather than being all over the place. Windy day. Anybody who's tried to shoot with OCF, off-camera flash, on a windy day knows that some of your favorite modifiers suddenly are a little harder to use because, you know, there's sails in the wind. So in this case, it was really windy. And I decided just to go with a couple of the hard reflectors. Different sizes, just to focus the light in a different way. The finished picture is from about 7 feet to the left, and it's going to be this. Same setup. Nothing changed. FJ200, FJ80 together, which is really, honestly, becoming my go-to thing to carry around with me because it's just really easy. You know, I have them with me no matter what. Middle of the day, f2, 200th of a second gives me that, but it's not the picture I got in my head. Remember we talked about this before, creativity. If the ambient light doesn't give you what you want, then add light. Well, adding light in itself isn't going to do much for this picture. You know, he's already lit pretty well by what's going on. So what I need to do is I need to go, all right, well, let me get rid of some of this ambient light that's boring me and then add light. So I keep f2, the depth of field is what I wanted, but I go all the way up to 8,000th of a second, take that light, move it a little farther back so that it gets harder. You know, sometimes this just, you know, makes people, they go, huh? It should be softer light. But no, remember we talked this earlier, that the bigger the light source in relation to the size of the subject, the softer it is. The counter of that is that if we take that light source, even though it's a big 43-inch octa orb, the Apollo orb in this case, even though it's a nice big light source, and we move it back with our speed light, so the reason I'm taking that speed light and putting it in there is to modify it, make the light softer, make it a bigger light source. But now I take it and I move it back so that it starts to get a little harder again. But what that also does at the same time is it allows the light time to spread out, which lights the background a little bit. So I get that little bit of sharp, dramatic fall off on the camera left of his chin, which really helps to define that shape. The guy's got, you know, modeled cheekbones, right? So we're making them even more accentuated, but it also allows the light to go away. If I take the light source and move it closer in this case, it does two things, and these are things you need to think about when you're placing your lights. It's going to make it softer. It's going to wrap around more. I'm going to lose some of that definition on the camera right side. It's also going to make the fall off go faster. So all that stuff to camera right that we've got here is going to suddenly get really dark, and we might not see the details in the door, the rivets and all that. You know, questions you have to make. You know, this whole process, and like, again, why do I carry a strobe with me? Because I can make fun pictures no matter what. If you've been to an aquarium and you know that at f4, 2,000th of a second, you've got a black picture. But by taking that FJ80, sticking it at the back of the tank, I'm able to get something like this. Really great. So what are the challenges? I've been telling you about how great they are. Well, let's just talk about them. What are the small strobe challenges? Try to say that 7 times fast. And how do we overcome them? To me, there's really one essential shortcoming of the small strobes, and that's that they have less power. I don't think lack's even a fair word to say. They have less power. But like we discussed, right now, a FJ80 to an FJ200 is, about 2 times. So we'd have to go, we'd have to change our ISO by 1.5, 2 stops to get the same power. From an FJ200 to an FJ400 is 1 stop. So we just have to raise our ISO a little bit and get the same. Now, if we don't want to raise our ISO because we're interested in the maximum image quality possible, or our camera just doesn't give us good results at higher ISO, we do have other ways that are really easy to deal with this. ISO, just talked about it. Light placement. Light placement is something that can't be overstated. And we talked about it just a little bit with that picture of the guy in front of the door. There's something called inverse square law. I'm not going to bore you with it too much, other than remember that if you take your light and you move it closer, it's more powerful. If you take your light and you move it back, it's less powerful. But remember, when you move it back, it doesn't get less powerful slowly. It really falls off quick. Every time you double the distance from your light to your subject, you quarter the power. So if you're starting with a light that's already 200 watts and you want to get soft light, it has to be very close to your subject. But if your framing of your shot insists that you move it back, remember, every time you double the distance, you're going to quarter the power. Likewise, if you decided to start with it back, but you're like, I really want softer light, or I need more power, take it and move it closer, and you're going to pick up a ton of power really quickly. Modifiers. It's really not how you're going to get more power out of it, but it is to say that the modifier you choose is going to go a long way in determining how much power from your strobe, your little strobe, gets to your subject. So if I'm using an FJ80, which is giving me this nice round head and gives me pretty soft light to begin with, and I don't need the utmost softness, I might just shoot it bare, because running it through a modifier is going to cut some light. So choosing to use a modifier, to not use a modifier, which modifier I choose to use, it's going to play a big role in how much power is getting to our subjects. And what we call ganging. We make a triple, light. I am sorry about that. You can put lights together. We make a triple, which is great for our FJ80s. If you want to put 3 of them together, you can use our quick bracket, which has also 3 cold shoes around it, as well as a space to put the interior. Taking the lights even and just putting them together on one side is going to give you more power, because they will act as though they are one. Hope that makes a lot of sense to you guys. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to hopefully say that there are some questions at the end of this. That's my goal. If not, hopefully Scott's got some questions. He's usually great at that. I really appreciate you guys stopping here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to talk lights with me, and the people at Westcott want to say thank you for all the support. We had a great year last year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys out there doing some live things when the time comes. Again, there's my information, and please don't hesitate to send me an email or hit me up on any of my social media. I will get back to you if you have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, JC. I'm sending you a message right now asking for some discount codes. So don't worry, everybody. I'm way ahead of the curve over here. I'm taking care of it. Okay.
Wow. All right. We went right there.
We went right there. Just kidding. Like JC said, if you do have any questions for him, make sure to drop them in. If you're on Facebook, Vimeo, again, use the comment section, Zoom, use the Q&A tab. JC's here to answer whatever you may have related to lighting or the product itself. Seishu is joining us on Facebook, wants to kick it off with a question here, wants to know, is the new trigger out yet? Basically for Fujifilm, is the Fujifilm trigger out yet?
We don't comment on future products.
Fair enough.
Like,
Fair enough.
I know Seshu. Seshu can hit me up directly. We can chat that up.
But
Yeah.
we have no further info at this time.
There's no official comment at this time.
There is I plead the fifth. Exactly. Got it. Understood. So moving past that, we'll move past that. This might have been something I've spoken to you about in the past, or it might have been something I've posed to other people, but I want to bring it back up because I think it's an interesting just change of sort of product in a sense, if you will. If you think about going past, I'd say anything before 2019, maybe even 2018, if we're pushing the envelope. Before then, in a traditional flash, and if we're talking about, an on-camera flash, something like that, typically the standard was that it was a rectangular shape and form factor of light that was being pronounced. And now over the last few years, we've seen a lot of manufacturers now shifting and changing to these spherical shapes. And my question is what is the mindset and what is the logic and thought process in changing that shape? Is there any benefit to that, or is that just...
It's a solid and excellent question, and I can't answer for any other manufacturers, but I can answer for us. Is that we make lights, and I think we make great lights, and we've only made these lights for the last 2 years now. Let's call it 2 years. At the end of the day, we are a company that is about lighting, not just about these strobes that we're making, not just about I'm being lit by a Solix right now, or one of our continuous products, or our flexes, or any of the other products that we make. So what we've been doing since 1969 is making light modifiers for photography. So that's the root of me answering the question. I know it sounds like I'm going in this big, circular thing to answer this question, but there's not a lot of natural light sources in the world that are rectangular. It's, one of the downsides to shooting small strobes was always the fact that it was a really tiny light source. And so that made it a harder light source inherently, which is what gave way to the entire industry of modifiers for all these things, which is great. We sell a lot of that stuff. But going to a rounder head, which simulates, I think just as the technology caught up that they can make a round head in a small package, well, all strobe, you don't see any bigger strobes that are rectangular headed, do you? There's a better image quality that comes out of a round. When the light has a chance to spread out evenly, for us, like if I'm going to put it into a softbox, I'm going to put it into a metal reflector. Having it hit all the edges equally at the same time, spread out in a nice way, is going to give us a nice, soft, or hard, but better quality light. The quality of the light, and that's why the FJ200 doesn't bother with a Fresnel head. When you read that we're at 200 watts, we're at 200 watts. We're not at 200 watts when we have one head on our unit and less wattage when we do something else. People can investigate those things themselves. But ours is right out there in a design that is designed to fill a modifier, to fill a reflector, to equally go through a gel, and make sure that light is the best quality light that we can make. Because at the end of the day, we want consistent, good quality light. And that's what Westcott's about.
Excellent. And if anybody can tell, I have terrible lighting here because my landlord doesn't want to fix my lighting. So maybe I need to invest in this. The problems of living in Brooklyn, JC, let me tell you.
I left, I got out. Yeah.
That's it. So Daniel's asking a question that I love, and I know this is a question I've posed to you in the past, but I love giving it to you anyway because it's such a great question, and it forces your hand, and we can all go back to Vimeo and Facebook and rewatch and see if JC's
if my answer has changed.
Exactly.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Anytime. Drop a comment next time he's on and let us know if he stayed consistent. But Daniel wants to know, what's your favorite modifier?
I feel like watching this, that you go, it's pretty clear that the Octa M has a very soft spot for me.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I love it, as it is probably my favorite softbox overall. It's just really flexible. Now, in the last 4 or 5 months, we came out with the Manny Ortiz medium beauty dish, which is the same 36 inches. So it's the same size, which is where I'm getting that softer light from. It gives me a lot of flexibility. But the Manny Ortiz Beauty Dish also allows me to put in the deflector plate and get that beauty dish look. And I love it. And you're seeing pictures from that creep into From Fear to Flash, where I tend to use all of my modifiers. So if I'm setting up a beauty setup, which is step and repeat, and I'm going to shoot it at 5.6 or at f8, then I tend to go 400 watts because I need more power. So that's kind of taken the place of my favorite. But before that, I'd say it's got to be the Octa M. Now, you see some of the older pictures in the presentation, you'll also see that I had a soft spot for the 43-inch orb. And these things all have something that's similar. 43 inches, 36 inches, a size that is good to make really soft light on one person, moderately soft light on a couple of people or a family, a small enough footprint that like I can carry it around without it becoming a hassle. I can get away with using it outside, which you see I shoot outside a lot without it just in a 2-mile-per-hour breeze deciding to flip over. Like, if I was looking for just the greatest soft light possible, yeah, I'll go to the Octa L. I'll go my 7-foot, umbrellas, which are just beautiful, soft, giant light sources. But if I had to pick one, it's going to be the Octa M or right now the Manny Ortiz Beauty Dish, which are both, they're my favorites. As far as why do I like those two versus, let's say, a 2x3 or a 3x4 softbox? Because I shoot outside so much, I like my catch lights to be round, because then it simulates what I would get if I was shooting outside with the sun. So that's the answer there.
And I will give you credit where credit is due. I'm 99.9% positive. And
Same
anybody
answer.
who wants to challenge me on this, but I'm 99% positive it's been the same answer. So kudos to you. You've stayed consistent. So you all know he's telling the truth.
Next time I'll look it up and go, what do I need to sell more of? I'll talk about that one. That's not how
I was expecting you to say the eyeliner, but forget it. It's fine.
Well, okay.
Now, Rose wants to know, do you ever use an on-camera light in an outdoor shoot?
So the answer is yes, on occasion. And that's something that we talk about extensively in From Fear to Flash, which is more of a lighting class that is Westcott-centric, where today was definitely more of a Westcott class that was lighting-centric. I apologize, Rose. Thank you for being here anyway. You might want to wait till the next time that I do this, and we'll talk about it more. I don't love a flash in the hot shoot. I'm not saying that there's no place for it. I know people that do genius work, bouncing and all that, but then I'm kind of left hoping that I've got a white wall that's close to me or a low ceiling that's close to me where I can get away with bouncing the light around. Because having that light come from here straight at them, in my opinion, is oftentimes better than no flash, where people tend to let the background either blow out or let their subject get really shadowy. But it is the least natural. It's the second least natural. Light coming from the ground up is the most unnatural, and that's why we call it monster lighting. But that light that's on the same exact plane as your lens, coming straight at the person, is the least natural looking light. And because of that, it can look good. It can get rid of wrinkles. It gets rid of shadows, but it's the least interesting, if that makes sense. I really generally prefer having, even if it's just in my hand off to the side. Imagine I don't have orangutan arms, but just being able to get it like 2 feet out, 2.5 feet out, gives me more interesting light. So I'd always prefer to have my remote in the camera and that light off to one side or the other. I have a series of pictures that I shot at a high-end touch football, which sounds kind of weird, but there was definitely money involved, and like these guys were all like retired Division III, not good enough for the pros, obviously, or maybe not even good enough for D1, but guys that took it seriously playing touch football. And I ran around with the FJ200 with the Octa S on a monopod. And so it never gets more than like 2 feet away from me, but the quality of light is definitely different than if I put that flash straight on. So to answer you, Rose, yes, sometimes. If I'm shooting an event, if I'm shooting a situation where it's just not practical to do it the rest of the way. but it is my third or fourth choice.
And
Good
and
answer.
just to kind of follow up on that, and I mentioned it before, but Rose, if you don't want to wait for JC to come back,
No,
which
wait for the next one. I want more viewers on the next one. The
you
next one's
want,
gonna be even
okay.
better than the last one.
Okay, so I'm not gonna plug it, but just in case you wanted to, you could go to vimeo.com/BH event space and rewatch the From Fear to Flash. But don't do that.
You could do that, Rose.
But don't wait for the next one.
I feel like I got all the hits on those I'm going to get. I want hits on the next one, and the next one's got better stuff.
We need future views. So
it's like being in the stock market, right? We're betting on futures.
There you go. Future money. That's what it's all about.
I don't really even know how that works, but we're doing it.
Clearly, I don't either, because you could see where
you're living without lights above your head in Brooklyn. Exactly.
Right. I'm over here. So Daniel wants to follow up, wants to know, is there a big difference in light quality between something like a beauty dish and a softbox?
Yes and no. Depends on how you use it. So if you put the deflector plate in, there's a difference in how that light hits. And if you use the beauty dish the way that a beauty dish is intended to be used, very close to your subject, then you get this really good contour, which really, it's for glamour. It's for beauty shots. It's a beauty dish. And you're going to use it in that specific way. I can't get that exact light out of the Octam. I can put a deflector blade into it, but it's a different depth. It's a little bit different. The beauty dish also has more. It's built. I don't want to say better. It's built differently. It's got more rods in it, and so it's more round. And I like the catch light like that. Now, if I'm going to take out the deflector plate and move it farther back so that it's more of a traditional 36-inch round softbox, I don't think there's a big difference. But having the ability to switch back and forth in one unit is really nice. Because to me, like I said, I've kind of been shifting towards the Manny Ortiz in my own shooting because it's a little bit more flexible for me to be able to do different things, which then allows me, instead of carrying the Octa M and the Manny Ortiz, or even the Octa M and the Joel Grimes smaller, beauty dish that we have, which is another really nice unit. It allows me to carry a 1x3 or a 1x4 instead. So I get two totally different types of light when I go out. So if I'm going to carry two. If I'm carrying one right now, today, it's probably the Manny Ortiz.
Great. Excellent. Now, I just want to finish up here, and I want to ask you, I know we've talked about power, but I want to get your answer. Obviously, this isn't the right answer necessarily, but your answer. It's an opinion.
You are really like, you're tiptoeing around whatever this question is. I'm not going to answer you about anything that has to do with money or power.
Oh, and it has nothing to do with future products. So we're all good. We're out of the way. But power. Let's talk about power. What is the obsession with power? Because I think that's something that you go on any kind of forum, you go into the store, anywhere. Anytime I talk to somebody about lighting, the first question that always gets asked is, how much power does it have? And I get it. I understand in certain circumstances there is a necessity for that, but I think some people tend to over-exaggerate the necessity for that.
They 100% do. And Scott, I don't get to say this often, but you sound, it's a good, smart question from you today. Great. So
I'll pat myself for you.
Yeah, so here's the thing. And if you look at my pictures from 5 years ago, when I had sold all my strobes and was just using speedlights because I worked at a company that made speedlights and didn't make everything else, I don't think anybody would look at them right away before I point this out and say, well, he was using a 200 watt, a 400 watt, or a 65. Because I knew how to make that tool work in the situation that I was. But once I point out to you that, so here's my framing, right? That my subjects would always be very close to one edge or the other. when I was doing my environmental work, which is primarily what I like to shoot, whether it's abandoned buildings or athletes on a field or whatever. I like some environment around my pictures. I'm a 35 millimeter guy, shooter, frame. So I like some space around my subjects. Being limited by the less watt seconds lights meant that I very much had to have the lights just out of frame, like really out of frame. I also was limited in the size of the modifiers I could use because, a small, tiny modifier has a harder time filling up a big modifier. A small light source has a hard time filling up a big modifier than a bigger light does. Now, at that time, I wasn't using round heads because, we didn't have them yet. And so they were even more. I had to really take that light source and blow it up because otherwise there was a hot spot in the middle. Now that I'm shooting with a 80 or the 200s, or when I do break out the 400, it has kind of liberated me to move the light source farther away, use a bigger light source to maintain the same softness, but have it change where it's going to be. That's one thing when people talk about power. The second thing is, and this is actually more important to me. So if I'm shooting a concert right now, and anybody who goes to look at my Instagram will see that I produce these hyperlapses at concerts where people are jumping all over my head sometimes, and they're all flashed. They're all strobed. I can do it with the FJ80, and sometimes I do because the FJ80 is small. It's easy to hold. But if I have the FJ80 at 6 power, I can have my 200 at 3.5, 4 power and get the same amount of light. But the battery lasts longer, recycles longer. So you can extrapolate that same argument out to 400 watts or 800 watts. Now, when I hear people in forums go, well, why don't you have a 600 watt? I go, it's only a half a stop more than the 400 watt that I already have. And unfortunately, for better or worse, not all companies measure their watt seconds the same way. That's getting into a whole other animal, but it's a great question. And if you're going to be somebody who shoots on the beach at noon and you want to shoot, F4, 5, 6, F8, you need a lot of power. And then you're putting yourself in a situation that you need it. But if you're a normal shooter and you have a little bit of control over what time of day, if I want to do that beach shot and I can do it at 4:30, 5 o'clock when I'm not competing with the sun so much, I can do it with my FJ200 and get great results. So it's not as simple an answer as I think you would have liked, but yeah, people oversay it. They do. But there are advantages to bigger lights, but the disadvantage is you're carrying bigger lights. Bigger batteries, bigger lights, bigger modifiers, bigger everything when you do that. So it's kind of, we make them both. And for me, it's the same, I don't carve the turkey with a Swiss Army knife, right? I don't think there's one tool that can do everything. What's important to me is to know not only what my tools are capable of, but also how to use that tool in a given situation.
Bingo. See, that's all I wanted to hear.
That was a long, when I cut this class off after 40 minutes, I was like, oh man, they're not going to fill an hour here. Like, it's the first time ever, because I usually run over. And then I'm like, well, it's 58. We're good.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you, JC, for being here. It's always
for having me here.
It's always good to talk with you. Always good to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
So I hope that everybody took away something from this, whatever it was, however big or small it was. Hopefully you got that. Do want to encourage you guys, if you're in the market and looking at the FJ Westcott line, head to the store. We're open. We've been open. Got the full line out there. We got the 80, the 200, the 400. I know
everything's
there. We work together to get them in the store, so they're in there, and they're ready to be tested out and tried out. So if you want to, they're definitely there. Go see my buddy Gary. I was talking to him earlier. He loves seeing you guys. So if you haven't got to the store yet, go see him. He wants to see you guys. He's excited. But definitely thanking Westcott as well for sponsoring the event. That's all I got today. That's all we've got. We can't wait to the next one. Hopefully we have another Fear to Flash pretty soon.
There will be, and I think that we have some other really cool Westcott speakers coming up in the next couple of months. So
definitely.
we're excited about it.
we've got stuff in the works. So stay
We do.
tuned. Make sure you're following along. For now, that's all we have. This has been another edition of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Catch you next time.